Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to another Office Hours here on Hosting.com's Agency Success. My name is Nathan Ingram, and I am the host, agency trainer for here in our Office Hours every week. You get to come in, ask whatever you would like about WordPress, business, clients, life, whatever you want to talk about. We look forward to this every week. If you have a question to ask, you can do that at any time during the week using the big blue button or green, whatever color it is there at the top of WPNathan.com. Big green button that says ask a question. And you can get those questions in. We take those in roughly the order in which they are received. And we get to those here. So if you have a question you'd like to ask today, I'm dropping the link to do so there in the chat. We currently have 9 questions in the list. So a great out of the gate group of questions here. Looking forward to that. Quick question in the chat. What is the logo on my t-shirt? Okay. This is the WAPU from the 2019 question mark WordCamp Miami. WordCamp Miami. Yeah, so this was the WAPU from that conference. This was the conference t-shirt. Yeah, it was a great conference. All right, let me get the screen shared. Got a couple of little bits of news that we'll talk about before we get into questions, as is our habit. Just a quick note on regarding the recent unpleasantness in WordPress, and that is that 2 new parties have joined this countersuit against WP Engine. The other branches of Automatic being or associations with Automatic, the WordPress Foundation and WooCommerce have joined the countersuit against WP Engine, just related to trademark stuff. So it's getting thick, and will continue to get thick until this thing gets resolved. That link, if you'd like to learn more about it, is here on the repository. If you're not familiar with this resource, it is the best source for WordPress news. Ray does an amazing job. It's really thorough journalism there. And the site is therepository.email. You can sign up for an email and so forth. So definitely, this is an interesting article to read if you're following along with the drama. One other little bit just going on in core is that the WordPress plugins team have now rolled out the plugin checker functionality for all plugin updates. So this is good. It's going to test for potential security issues and compatibility and those sorts of things within existing plugins in the plugin directory. So that's really good. This is happening behind the scenes. You don't have to know anything about it. It's just going to work. And overall, it's going to improve the overall security and health of the plugin directory, which can sometimes be a bit of a free-for-all. After 10 plus years of doing monthly plugin roundups with newly added plugins to the WordPress directory, I can tell you there's a lot of garbage. A lot of garbage there in the plugin directory. So this is good. Behind the scenes plugin check to make sure all the things are healthy. So this is good. There's some interesting suggestions in this also from one in particular from my friend Amber Hines at Equalize Digital, putting some badges on plugins saying, no issues in the last X updates or whatever. That's good. So this builds a better WordPress for all of us. So I'm pretty excited about that. Let's get into some questions, shall we? As we get started, let me draw your attention to our list of upcoming live streams. And I'm going to drop our link bundle back into the chat here. You can see all of our upcoming live streams on this link tree at upcoming.myagencysuccess.com. Got some really interesting things coming. November the 4th, that is Tuesday, I'll be talking about the referral engine and building an intentional referral network to grow business for your agency. We're also going to be talking on November the 13th, protecting your online store. Now, this is Hans from Termageddon is going to be talking about the importance of the legal aspect of privacy and cookie compliance and these sorts of things for your online store. November the 11th, that is the 1 week from this coming Tuesday, we'll be talking about preparing your WooCommerce store for the holidays. I'll be doing that. This is going to be a live stream that is geared toward more a DIY audience. So if you're a professional WooCommerce person you might find some things that are helpful, but really we're talking directly to site owners in this one. But you might find some really important information just on speeding up WooCommerce and securing your checkout page and these sorts of things. I'll be talking all about that on Tuesday, November the 11th. Breaking the content bottleneck with AI is coming up. That's the following Tuesday, so 2 weeks from this coming Tuesday. I'll be talking about a framework to generate decent content for your website using AI, or at least the first draft that the client can then polish over. And finally, on November the 19th, the high cost of poor client communication. This is an interesting one with folks from Bug Herd, a product that helps you collect feedback about your website. So lots of interesting live streams coming up here on the agency success here with hosting.com. All right, let's get into our questions for today. Looks like we currently have 10 questions in the queue. And I'm going to open up these first from Beth Livingston because some of these go together and I want to make sure that I get them all. Okay. All right. Beth's question. Beth says, I'm having trouble with Blisk. Do you know of an alternative? So pausing just for a moment. If you're not familiar with Blisk, it is a delightful tool that allows you to, it's a Chromium browser. So it's based on the Chrome browser, but it allows you to preview the various websites right on what they would look like on a phone or on a tablet. And they have various phone sizes here, and you can pick those sorts of things. So yeah, it's really nice just to preview your website on these screen sizes and see how they look. So I like it. We use it as a final polish when we're building client sites. So that is what Blisk is. And the question is, having trouble. So as is being mentioned in the chat, just this week, Blisk did have some technical issues. And it was related to the Microsoft Azure problems that are going on right now. I'm not fully up to date on all that other than there was an issue. Amazon S3 had, or Amazon AWS had a problem a couple weeks ago. This week it's Azure. You know, it's just all the things are breaking. The interesting fallout of living in such a connected world, right? So maybe that was part of your issue, Beth, but I don't think that's what it was. Let's just keep reading here. It's rendering iPad Pro 12 completely differently in major ways than iPad 10 or 11. And the 12 is showing both the desktop and the tablet view. I want to try something else. Okay, so first of all, before you run to another tool, Beth, let me just take a quick look here at the screenshot that you sent that I think will help to shed some light on what's going on. So the iPad Pro 12, and you can see it right here, it is a larger screen than these others, right? So here on this iPad 12, you're seeing a single column view versus the double column view. And so I would take a look at, how are your responsive breakpoints set up? Is there something going on here at this breakpoint that's causing this difference? Because it is interesting though, that at this wider width, it's showing one column, and a narrower width, it's showing two columns. So that's kind of odd. One thing I will mention, Beth, is Blisk, like the fatal flaw with Blisk is that it caches things so aggressively to the point of if you make some changes, you have to like clear the memory of Blisk. You have to, delete the history in Blisk to get it to update sometimes. Ben is mentioning he has to put Cloudflare in dev mode, and it caches aggressively. And I've asked questions to the team about that and haven't ever gotten a good answer. So there's nothing that I've found that's wrong with it. I don't know what this URL is. If you want to drop it in the chat, we can view it live. But my guess is the problem you're encountering has to do with caching. But this is the best tool that I use for this. I don't have really another good suggestion. Jamie is mentioning Polypane, which I'm not familiar with. But maybe it's going to do something similar. Yeah. Chris, we did have another tool. Chris from my team is in the chat. Chris, what did we use? Sizzy. That's what I was looking for. Sizzy is another one. I think I have that here. I don't use it a lot. I'm not even sure what's going to come up when I open this thing up. Yes. Um, so you could try Sizzy. It's not as I find it not as nice as Blisk, to be honest. That's why I've never really moved over to this. Um, it's not as nice. Beth, what is the URL that we're actually looking at here? Can you drop that in the chat and we'll try to open it up in Blisk and see what we see here? But I bet you your issue with Blisk is caching, because that's usually where I have problems with Blisk. All right. Okay. Give it a quick second here, Beth. If you can drop it in, we'll look at it. Otherwise, we need to move on. Yes, the address for Sizzy is there in the chat. It's fine. It. I know a lot of folks that use this and like it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on, Beth. If you up right there, it is the link. Right on cue. Okay. Let me see if I can get that here in our URL. Well, that is a 404. So that is not, oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's iPad 12. Yeah, see it's showing, ooh, what's going on here? Um, Interesting. Beth, my guess is that you've got layout issues. Also, I'm not sure why I'm getting a 404 here. Yeah, I think there's bigger issues here than Blisk. I think you've got a layout issue that's not necessarily related to Blisk itself. Okay. All right. Well, let us move on then to Beth's second question, which is, why was there no agency news weekly from you posted on Post Status this week? Well, the answer is I am no longer doing agency news with Post Status. So that would be why it's not there. All right. The next question in the list is from Ben B. All right, Ben. All right. Pods and Metabox. So migrating pods to Metabox. I thought I would finally make the move to Metabox and migrate the pods data using their migration plugin, which worked. Yeah. Metabox does have an excellent little plugin that just moves all the pods things over into Metabox things. However, the post type field appeared to break or disappear in the query loop that I first tested. I've restored my backup. As I can see, this is going to be a bit of time consuming to check everything that's working. Yeah. Any advice on getting query loops to work in cadence after pods migration to ensure everything is working? Is it a case of just going through each query loop and reconnecting the new Metabox post type? That is awfully weird, Ben. When you went through the migration process from pods to Metabox, was the post type slug exactly the same as it was before? Because that's going to be the key. Okay. So that's the first thing. Everything is based on the slug in WordPress and display. if it is exactly the same, and I think it probably should be, um, I don't know why that would break in Cadence Query Loop. There may be something eccentric about the way Cadence Query Loop grabs the data. There might be some caching, but it should be looking in the same place. And everything about WordPress and custom post type should be keyed off of that slug. And so that's odd. That's going to be a question for the Cadence team. As we have moved, I'm going to tap my brain trust here again. Chris, when we've converted from pods to Metabox, I don't believe we had to update anything. It just kind of worked, right? I don't believe we had to update any loops or anything. Yeah, it should. So we're not using Cadence query loops. We're typically using Beaver Builder and those modules for our builds. But those key off of the slug. So there was no changes. So that is really interesting. So you mentioned it might be a double taxonomy. Yeah, so that's the other piece. What is in that query loop that's causing things to show up or not to show up? So if you have an additional filter in that query loop that's related to a taxonomy, you got to make sure all that stuff came over correctly and that it matches one for one. It should just work. But yeah, if there's a taxonomy involved, that might be the issue, that something's didn't come through correctly. That tool does bring in everything, pods, custom post types, custom fields, and taxonomies into it. It just replicates them with the same slug by default. So check that taxonomy. That might be your issue. All right. Moving right along, Jamie. Hey, Jamie. Oh, I read this one earlier. This is a great question. My company has recently partnered with 2 other web dev companies to collaborate on client website builds. We have our first project. Yay. Congratulations. The client is one of my former web dev clients who closed her business, worked in corporate for 2 years, and is now leaving corporate and reopening her business under a new branded name. Fun. I'm taking the lead on this project. So my question is, how should we handle invoicing? I'm a sole proprietor based in Tennessee. One colleague is an LLC in Florida, and the third colleague is in the UK. I originally was going to invoice and then pay the other colleagues, but that might be a mess. The Florida-based colleague asked her accountant, who said we need to send each other 1099s. Okay, I do have master contracts. Great. So here's the deal. What type of business entity you have doesn't really matter here. It's really a bigger question than that. And whenever you collaborate with people, it can be a really great thing. It can also be a gigantic mess. So you have to make sure that everybody is clear at the beginning on what the relationship is going to be. So Jamie, as you've talked to your partners in crime on this project, have you've figured out who's getting paid what and how that all works, right? I would assume. Sort of. Okay. That's something you want clarity on at the beginning, right? So as you're building, first, somebody needs to be the lead, right? Somebody's business, and especially from the client's perspective, who are they paying? And it's going to be easier from the client's perspective that, just for example, Jamie, you and your agency are their provider, right? And you, as an agency, have chosen to outsource part of this work to other partners. So the client needs to know who they're hiring, and it's going to be a mess if there's all these other people involved. For the client, if I'm a client, I want to hire you or one person, one company to be the people that build and manage my website, right? So for you as the lead of the project, the client needs to sign your contract, and you've got the proposal and the scope of work and all of this, and the client pays you. Now, on the other side of that, behind the scenes, the other people who are going to be doing part of the work, I would encourage the way I would do it is these are people who work for, you're bringing into the project. So you're managing the project, and you're going to pay each of these contractors a piece of the pie, right? So you need to be very clear in your agreements with these other people that your client is your client, right? And these other contractors you brought in, let's just say, the person from Florida, the client is not their client. You are the Florida person's client. They work for you, not for the end client. Does that make sense? So just get everything very clear. The person in the UK, their client is Jamie, not the end client. So they work for you, Jamie. And you work for the client. Your business is the one that they have hired. Does that make sense? And or it can work another way, but just the client needs to have one person that they're hiring to make this as clean as possible. And the other people work for that entity as contractors. So underneath all of this, they need to be very clear on how and when they get paid. So for you as the contracting entity, if we're moving that direction, if you're hiring out these people in your agreement, like you need to have at least a memo of understanding, which can just be a simple, plainly worded document where you've all agreed that this is how you're going to do things. Ideally, if you're going to do this more, you should have a better formalized legal agreement. The contractor's agreement inside of Monster Contracts can help with that. But you need to have an agreement. One of the most important things is you, the contractors, are not going to get paid until I get paid from the client in this case, right? Because what you don't want to happen is, the client doesn't pay and you get left on the hook to pay the contractors anyway, even though the client didn't pay you. Does that make sense? That's the risk in this scenario. So that's kind of how I would structure it. Does that make sense? Now, okay, so in this particular case, this client, you're not worried about that. But you don't need this agreement for the good clients. You need the agreement for the bad clients. And sometimes it's hard to tell good clients and bad clients apart at the beginning. So if you're going to do, like, this is a good test to see if you guys work together well and so forth. If this is going to be a regular thing, you need to have formalized, clear, just so everybody's on the same page, especially if you want to like these people on the other side of this, and you still want to be friends, you need to have clarity in your agreements. It's just critical. And just making sure everybody's on the same page. This is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to go. You've got to do that. Otherwise, it's going to become a mess. Because at some point, there's going to be a problem that comes up that's going to make things messy and muddy between all three of you collaborating. The other piece of this, legally, whether you're a sole proprietor or not, if you hire a contractor to work for you, now, I am not an accountant, nor am I an attorney. I'm an agency owner, just like all of you, and I'm giving advice that I understand to be true as a fellow agency owner. You should check this with your attorney or your accountant. But as I understand the law in the U.S., with the IRS, any contractor that you pay more than $600, $600 is the number, in a calendar year, you must send a 1099 to. So in order to do that, you'll need to collect a W-9, which is the form on which that party reports to you what their legal entity is. And then then you send to them a 1099. And you can do it online. There's services to do that and that sort of thing. Kristen is saying that number may have gone up. I mean, I hope so. That would make it, it was $600 forever. And if somebody wants to Google that real quick, if it's changed, that's great. Yeah. So Jamie, you're saying it's going to be more than, so either way, you're going to have to collect that documentation. Now, since the person is outside the person in the UK, they're not going to need to do that. You're just going to need to keep careful documentation that you paid this person. So if you ever get audited, this is going to be the payment to the person in the UK is going to be an expense to your business as outside contracting or outside services or however it's set up in your accounting system. So that's an expense that reduces, your tax liability by what you paid them. So you're going to want to make really sure that you have documented and saved where that money went out, was sent by Wise or whatever. And just keep that just in case you ever get audited, right? So that should cover you. You do have to send that 1099 in January. You use stupid QuickBooks. I hate QuickBooks too, but I use it too. And unfortunately, every piece of accounting software sucks. They're like project management software. They all suck. You just stick with the one you hate the least. Good. Okay, Jamie, we've big lots of things here. Does that answer your question? Get clarity with your partners. Like if you want it, that's the most important thing. Make sure everybody's on the same page and that it's documented and signed by everybody so you all know, what to expect from everybody. And in a perfect world, you'll have no problems. And if it's not a perfect world 6 months from now, then you've got a document where you agreed to how these things are going to work. All right. Great question, Jamie. Thank you for asking that. And if you have a question, folks, the link to ask it is there in the chat. All righty. Jeffrey is next. Hey, Jeffrey. I had a site go down last week, and so I noticed that Cloudflare did its part by showing always online cached version. Yay. Unfortunately, the cached version was a mess and seemed to be missing some, but not all of the CSS. Yeah. I can see how they pull that from archive.org, and I can confirm that on archive.org. Many of my saved pages are missing a lot of CSS. I'm pretty sure it has to do with the caching plugin or maybe caching plus Cloudflare. Yeah. Is there any way to improve what archive.org saves? Can we not serve a cached version of our site to archive.org? Okay. So first of all, let's understand what archive.org is. Archive.org, the quickest way I find it, I just Google Wayback Machine. And so web.archive.org, this will, something's gone wrong. That's interesting. Well, it's broke. Is it just me? Isn't everybody else having this? Okay, it works on archive.org. Interesting. Maybe we should all donate to archive.org so that it works. So archive.org is going to capture, these previews of websites. Now, this is a nonprofit organization. They have limited resources, and so they're not saving perfect snapshots of every page. They're just not. Like, look at WP Nathan. Yeah, that's scary. And so there are definitely CSS issues here. And this is pretty common for sites that are saved on archive.org. Can you imagine what it would take to save a perpetual archive of every website on the internet? It just massive, massive, massive storage. So this is pretty typical, unfortunately. The always online feature of Cloudflare, basically what that's doing is pushing versions of your site over to the web archive, to the Wayback Machine. It used to be the Wayback Machine would find your site, and whenever it felt like it, it would save a copy, right? The Cloudflare always online toggle does that proactively. So it's helping you, but yeah, you can't really control how it looks. I'm not aware of anything that's going to clean this up. It just is what it is. So, Jeffrey, yep, it makes sense that what you saw was what you saw. And unfortunately, no, I don't know any other way to do it. Jeffrey is asking, is there any alternative to Cloudflare's feature to show a cached site when it goes down? No. No, unfortunately not. Because then it would just be a mirror of if you want this to be 100% always on, number one, get a host that's not going to go down on you. Number two, you could mirror the site and set up some network mirroring where if one is down, that's really costly and complicated. Yeah. So Jeffrey, there's not an easy way to answer this question or to solve this problem. Oh, the whole .gt domain service went down. That's bad. Um, you know, does your contract cover you if this is the discussion to have with a client. This is out of your control. It is literally a force majeure type event, um, where it's a network issue that is out of your control. And so it's a sort of thing you just have to discuss with the client at that point. Was it a mission critical website? Meaning like the world came to an end because the site was down? I mean, I tell you, thankfully, the if there's anything if there's anything good about the AWS outages that we've seen in the last year, especially the one a couple weeks ago, or last week, whenever that was, it's that clients are now aware that sometimes the internet breaks. And so if there's any silver lining to that cloud, it can make it easier to explain to clients, look, there was a network infrastructure issue that was out of our control. Like the .gt domain name went down. Every .gt was down. Yeah. Yikes. All right. Well, Doug, I'm not sure if that helped, but there's not really a good answer to that question. Okay, next up, another question from Jamie. This is a monster contracts question. So Jamie, I'll give a quick answer here. If you want more detail, just shoot me an email. In the MSA, the Master Services Agreement, wouldn't we want change budget clause right after the proposal of services clause? I'd have to look at where it is and why it's there. There's a reason where it is. I'm not sure what that is at this moment without digging it up. But if you want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to answer that question, Jamie. And of course, you're free to move that around. Also, if you want it in a different place, that's why it's a Word document. All right, next up is Melanie. Hey, Melanie. Melanie moved one of her adopted sites, that's a great word, to the new server on hosting.com. Yeah, excellent. So having an issue with cabinet pages loading. What is, it's like literally cabinets. Cache setting on Lightspeed. The page is using product tables plugin from Barn 2. Oh dear, look at that. But all the other pages work fine? Huh. Interesting. That's terrible. This is crazy slow. Everything else is nice and fast. Look at that. Um, so it's clearly a plugin issue. And have you looked at the error log to see if it's throwing any errors? Yeah, something's weird on this. You've got something. Yeah, this browser's crashed out. Yeah, there's something odd about this site for sure. Let's see if we can see anything. Goodness. Yeah, this site doesn't even want to load. This is weird. Um, Good grief. Let's try again. Yeah, I can't even click anything. Uh, Melanie, if you deactivate that, yeah, this is so strange. Look at that. The page is unresponsive. Have you checked the error log? Is there anything in the error logs? Oh, not sure where it is. Okay, so in WordPress, it's going to be in the root, or it's going to be, there's two error logs in WordPress, in the root and in the WP admin folder. Generally speaking, front end errors are going to be reflected in the root error log. So go into your public HTML, and here's error log here in the root. You can take a look at that. Bunch of garbage in here. There's also one in the WP admin. This is usually only errors that are showing in the back end, but sometimes it'll catch some front end errors in here as well. Who knows what all this stuff is? Dig into that. That's where they are. That's the first place I would look. Paul is saying there could be one in WP content. I've not seen one in there personally, but yeah, there could be one. Depends on if maybe a plugin might write one there for some reason. The other option you could do is, thank you, Vern, is turn on WP debug and just see if anything shows up there. But clearly you haven't. This was working on the previous host, Melanie. What version of PHP do you know? I mean, knowing that it worked on the previous host means we need to figure out what's the variance between the previous environment and the new environment. It was 8.2. So what are you running on now? Is it 8.2 on the new server as well? One thing you might check is in the htaccess, see if there's an add handler at the bottom. Sometimes there might be some leftover stuff at the very bottom in your htaccess from the previous host. Like if this, a lot of times hosts will write into your htaccess the like hard code in the PHP version. Make sure that's gone. And then, you can check the PHP here. There also it might be that there's some module that that Barn2 plugin requires. And so let me just do that again. I did it pretty quickly. Here in cPanel, just search for PHP and go to select PHP version. And there you'll see what the version is that's currently running on the site. In this case, it's 8.3. But then you might want to scroll down here. Here's all the PHP modules. Make sure that you reach out to Barn2 tech support, see what modules are required for that plugin, and make sure that they're checked on. And like just to say here, if I want to turn on, I don't know, let me just pick one. Whatever sodium, I don't even know what that is. Click it, and it's just boom, it's on now. That module is now on. So you don't have to save anything. It's going to update it when you check the box. The other thing you might check, Melanie, is how much memory is allocated to this site in PHP, not in your WP config, but in your PHP. So, what memory limit do you have? If it's a WooCommerce site, probably needs to be at least 512. You might want to bump it up to a gig and see if that helps. The fact that it was crashing the browser tab makes me lean more towards some sort of weird PHP thing. But yeah, I would reach out to Barn2 tech support for sure to check PHP modules and see if they've seen this before. All right. Does that give you a good direction, Melanie? Barn2 tech support is generally pretty good. They have pretty good stuff. Terry's saying check if the max var character limit are above 3,000. See what the default is here. So by the way, all these things in options, these are the items that are generally in the php.ini file. So this one is set for 15,000 because some page builders want that. And if you have it much below 10,000, it's going to crash out your page builder. Okay. All right, Melanie, good luck. Let us know what you come up with on that. That is a curious problem. All righty, next up is Sue. Hey, Sue. Sue has a server question. This is the second time it's happened. Both were solid WP plugins. The server found bad files. What are bad files? In the plugins. We fixed it the first time. The second time made us ask what is in those plugins that the server is barfing on. What is NB? The plugins are not dangerous, but okay. Noto bene. That's smarter than me. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, pay attention to. Okay. I didn't know that. Interesting. The plugins are not dangerous, correct, but my server admin runs a tight ship. Can you guess what kind of files that it's rejecting? I have no more info than this. No, but um, I will say that this is a tangent slightly because I don't have an answer for this question. Whenever I see people who have issues on a server or hosting, it is more times than not a little niche host, some local, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but sometimes those folks are very opinionated about how their stuff wants to run, and WordPress doesn't like that. And you will frequently find that it is much better to host your site on a host that is friendly to WordPress. Vern, I'm not saying anything. Vern's a sysadmin. I'm not saying anything about any of that. I'm just saying that, Vern, you know how it is. Server admins can be very opinionated about what should run and what shouldn't. I don't know. I would need a lot more information, Sue, to think about what in the world is this server barfing on. I don't know. It depends on how particular your server admin is and what kinds of things they've turned off on the server. Yeah, I don't know. I at one time, one of my original hosting providers way back in the day, I don't even know if they're still around anymore. But they were very particular, which at the beginning I thought was a great thing until I was wasting so much time with them, having to turn this on, turn that on, what a little tweak here, a little tweak there for every single thing I wanted to do. And I realized, okay, at some point, this is crazy. Let's start hosting with a company that understands WordPress and likes WordPress and supports WordPress. Anyway, Sue is saying it was the iTheme sync plugin both times. Some sites went down, other sites deactivated the plugin. I don't know. It's a good question. It could be that maybe ports are being blocked. There are certain with solid WP products there and lots of products like that are connecting from the outside. You have to allow lists IP addresses, certain IP addresses. Yeah. Very, very weird. I don't know. But a symptom of a problem that I've experienced before with very opinionated server people. Oh. All right. Now, Terry, that's an interesting. If some of the code in a plugin can't be scanned, then some systems will flag that as malware to be removed. For example, some, not much anymore, especially in the early days, there were some very popular plugins that obfuscated some of the code in the plugin with base64 encoding. That's the same thing that malware writers do. And so there are very few people that do that anymore. I can't imagine that Solid WP does that. But Terry's correct. Like if there are some files that have encoded code, that's not a redundancy. That's encoded code. Um, it the system could flag that, but I can't imagine that there'd be any of that um, in that plugin. Interesting. Hokey dokey. Um, Terry, that is one of the yeah, that's one of the plugins that did that. Yes, along with a particular membership plugin, which shall remain nameless because they've come around. Okay, Ben, Mr. Anderson, here we go. If you were to replace Solid Security, what would you use? WP Umbrella has Patch Stack, but I would like to have two-factor login on all sites. Are there any good plugins for just that, or what would you recommend? Um, huh. So I find great value in having Patch Stack in some way as part of your WordPress site uh, for the virtual patching. It's just nice to have, and you don't have to worry about things, right? You can, if you want Patch Stack, you can bring that in with the Patch Stack plugin. They have their own plugin that lets you do all the things, or bring in that virtual patching, just like Solid Security does. To bring in two-factor, I know there are certain plugins that offer two-factor authentication. I'm bailing on exactly what those are. Oh, yeah, I should have guessed. This is one that I've seen. It's called, go figure, WP2FA. And this is MeliPress. They've done some good plugins. This supports like authenticator apps. I'll tell you what like. If I were to want to just have something that does 2FA, my favorite 2FA tool is Duo. I love Duo security. Have y'all seen Duo? It's so great. The fishing season is over. That's right. I love that line. So Duo they have their own app. And what I like about it is it sends a push alert. So my phone goes boom, and the little thing, and you hit the green button to check, and then it just logs you in. So you don't even have to add the code. It's like it's sending in a code and it's authorizing like a one-time password, TOTP would do, but it's a little more usable. And Duo at the base level is free. It is a Cisco product. So it is, there's a great company behind it. And right here, up to 10 users, works great. And there is a WordPress plugin for Duo. We are using it on one of our client sites for lots of different reasons. They use Duo internally. And it's a good plugin. I like it. Or if you want more of a traditional TOTP approach, this is a good one. And there's probably a bunch of other ones also. So, Ben, does that help? Ben, if you're going to do this for clients, I would look at Duo. Now they would have to install the app. It depends on the technical level of your clients, right? And is it going to be easier for them to install a Duo app and get set up that way, or deal with a one-time, the authenticator type passwords? You just have to decide which is going to be best for your clients. But this one, it's just so easy. I like it. Duo is not a password manager. It is it's an authentication tool. It doesn't save passwords. Yeah. So there's a couple of options. However, we like Solid Security and we continue to use it. I think it's the security plugin for WordPress that does the best job of what a good WordPress security plugin should do. Is there anything else I would miss from Solid Security? We use Solid Security's CAPTCHA on some sites that are not behind Cloudflare on the login page. I would miss that. There are other plugins that can do that, of course. It is really handy to have user groups on sites where clients log in, where you can easily manage users and what they, what their requirements are for the site. That's something Solid Security does really well. Sue's mentioning version management. Yeah, I mean, you could have Solid Security auto update certain plugins for you if you want to do that. You can do that kind of with Core now. Yeah. So that's really what I would miss. Before we started using Cloudflare, I would miss the brute force network, that sort of thing. But with a good network protection using Cloudflare WAF rules, there's nothing wrong with Solid Security's brute force protection, but it's better done at the network. Okay, great question. Thank you, sir. Next is Vern. I sense a server question. No, it's not. Okay, here we go. Vern. Feedback at hosting.com on their blog and other places, they list various live streams, but the date on the thumbnail is the date it was posted. I've noticed that too. Katie, are you still here? Yeah, Katie's still here. I noticed that too. I don't know if there's an easy way to handle this because I don't think the blog uses WordPress. It uses something else. Um, yeah, it's the date on the thumbnail itself is correct, but I imagine what you're talking about, Vern, is like this right here. And so this is the published date, which could be easier. I mean, it could be confusing to think that's the live stream date. I get that. I don't know an easy solution to that. It is showing up all good right here. All right. But thank you for the feedback. Next up is Paul. Hey, Paul. Oh, my. There's HT access in here. Okay. Paul says we moved a website from domain1.com to domain2.com. Going to any page on the initial site still gets redirected to the new site. All redirects were created by a simple entry in HT access on domain 1, blah, 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 blah. However, this means an account will be needed on my server in my WHM indefinitely. Is there a way to do this at the domain registrar level? No, there is not. You could do this potentially at Cloudflare, but not as easily. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't need an account, Paul. You could just set this up as an add-on domain underneath, like we have the same issues. So we have like where the website is now is the account in cPanel, and the old domain is just, or even sometimes an alternate spelling or other things, is just an add-on domain in that same cPanel account. So it's not costing you two cPanel accounts. Just use an add-on domain, and that'll solve the problem. The one website per cPanel rule of thumb is about WordPress sites. So as a general rule of thumb, you don't want multiple WordPress sites inside the same cPanel because if one site gets hacked, they'll all get hacked. So having websites in their own cPanel makes them sort of in their own little walled garden where if they get compromised, if the host is set up correctly, the hack won't get outside of that cPanel, generally. So, but adding on a domain is no problem. So you do your add-on domain, that's going to create a folder in your file structure, edit that HT access, you're good. Vern, that is a really good point also, is some registrars will let you forward just the root, but this looks like it is, try to read Klingon here. Okay, so you're not doing like domain1/contact goes to domain2/contact, right? This, I think, is sending all traffic to domain2. Just the homepage, right? Or are you forwarding? It does every page goes. Okay. So domain 1/contact goes to domain 2/contact. So you definitely at that time, you need and it'd be easier just to set up as an HT access. If your registrar supports a wildcard redirect, you might get it to work there, but this is probably the simplest thing since you know what you're doing. Just drop it in, good to go. All right. Moving along, 2 questions left and 1 minute to go. So we'll wrap this up here. Next question is from Melanie. Oh, it's a follow-up. That's still Paul's question. Follow up to the weird plugin issue. I turned off caching for the product table and upped the memory to a gigabyte. It looks to have improved a little, but the initial going to the page is slow. If you go to the home page first, okay, let's go back to this and see. This is just a weird problem. Then click cabinets and then click on a cabinet page. So cabinets and one of these like this pages. There is a delay. Oh no, it seems to be working. No, it's still, oh no, it's working. That's what it was. It looks like maybe it was a memory issue, Melanie. This started when you moved to Cadence from W. So this was in WP Bakery. God bless you. Okay, try a different page. This looks good to me. Anybody else want to give this a try? We're going to mess up your analytics, Melanie. Let's see. Go to a different cabinet page. It looks good to me. Everything's moving right along. Oh, not a tab page. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Everything seems to be working. Cabinets different page. Like this. Ah. No, it's still going. It's still going. It's just a little slower. Yeah, seems to be working fine. Looks like it was a resource issue. We found more and more any kind of WooCommerce site that has any sort of add-ons, it needs a gigabyte. It just needs at least a gigabyte. We have some that are higher than that because there's a lot going on. Crazy. Okie dokie. One more question today from Melanie. Oh, another one came in from Dave. We'll do 2 more questions here. Okay. Melanie M. Is two-factor authentication really a deterrent? Should I really use it? Yes, and yes. When would I or why wouldn't I? Okay, so two-factor is important if your password gets compromised. So if somebody tries to log in as you to a website and you have this extra, the first factor of authentication, 1FA, is your password. The second factor, 2FA, is it could be click the link in an email that's sent to you, or it could be supply this little code, or allow the Duo link, or whatever. So, this is a second factor, and it's really important these days because of all of the password compromises that are out there. So, yes, it is very important to do this. Also, there's evidence of, passwords getting sniffed on rogue Wi-Fi connections and things like that. It's just better to have 2FA. Now, in addition to that, you also the single best thing you can do for security after 2FA is logging out of every site when you're done. Every site. Because what that's going to do is kill the session so that if, one of the big ways that hackers are getting access to things now are stolen session cookies. So malware gets in your browser, on your computer, And the session cookies that authenticate you, like you've provided your password, you've authenticated with 2FA, it drops a cookie on your computer that says this browser is now logged in. Hackers are stealing those things, and all they have to do is load the cookie, and boom, they're in as you. And it doesn't matter if you have 2FA or what, they're still logged in. And the way to deal with that is to log out. That invalidates that session. So the two things, use 2FA and log out after everything that you do, period. Melanie, what is the plugin to auto log out? It's called inactive logout. For some reason, caps lock is on. So there's a plugin to do it, or you could just, yeah, you can change the length here. It's really just a piece of code. You know, if you could change your login duration in code for all your sites if you wanted to. Oh, Vern, thank you. And I'll amend my reply about the what other things that I like about solid security, and that's the trusted devices feature, which is the only thing I'm aware of aside from logging out that can help to thwart one of these stolen session cookies attacks, because solid security collects a number of pieces of data about your fingerprint when you log in, like your IP address and your browser and your all the different characteristics, and it builds a profile of you that will still even work if your IP address changes, but it does all this to let you know, hey, this is a completely different looking device or whatever. And, you know, are you sure that it's you? So that's good. Melanie, what's the code? It's a snippet. You could Google it. You could ask your favorite AI tool to write it for you, or just get this plugin. It's going to do the same thing. Yep. Check out the demo. I'm not sure what's happening here, but a lot of things are happening here. Okay, yeah, okay. So here's our idle timeout. So this is pretty good. This plugin is a little better than the basic code because the code will just invalidate it after 24 hours or 15 minutes or whatever. This is only when you're idle, right? So it doesn't start the countdown until the browser is idle. So this is pretty good. We do use this plugin. We like it. Okay, one more, and then we will wrap it up for today, and that is from Dave. Hey, Dave. But before you mentioned how bad it was, I installed Google Analytics with the plugin Google Sitekit by Google. Last week, I installed Independent Analytics, and I think it's great. All I really need, yeah. Google says reset Sitekit, deactivate, and delete the plugin. Is there more cleanup I should be doing? Anything to watch out for? Okay, so just to head off any questions, Google Sitekit is fine. It's a fine plugin. It brings some nice information in. The real problem is never, ever, 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 ever install your analytics code with a WordPress plugin. In other words, don't rely on a WordPress plugin to make sure your analytics is the analytics tag is added to the website. I don't care what plugin it is. We have had multiple experiences over many years where inexplicably the plugin loses connection or authentication for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden it's not showing the G tag anymore. And you don't even know that's happening until you see the analytics flatline, then you're toast. Like you can't recover those analytics because they didn't exist. So use code to add the snippet to your website or your favorite snippet plugin like Fluent Snippets or your own MU plugin or whatever. Anyway, so cleaning up Sitekit, they do have a really good cleanup where it says deactivate and delete. Yeah, so that's going to, I would reset Sitekit first. That's going to wipe out any of the settings that are in the database. Then you can deactivate and delete and you're good to go. So if you can rely on independent analytics and that gives you all you want, excellent. And like I talked about before, independent analytics, fabulous plugin. It does what most people want. The only time you're going to get into an issue is, or even need the pro version, is if you're running ad campaigns and you really do need to get connected to Google, or if you're running e-commerce and you need the e-commerce analytics, then that's where the pro version comes in. But for most basic sites, independent analytics is wonderful. We've not noticed a slowdown on anything, and the reports are pretty. And it's all right there in the back end of WordPress with a first-party cookie. meaning, the privacy issues aren't nearly what they would be with Google Analytics and the third-party cookies. So, all right. Great question, Dave. Thank you for asking that. I believe that wraps us up for today. Yep, that's it for today. So we're back on Tuesday to talk all about building an intentional referral network and leveling up your agency by creating and maintaining relationships that can help bring work into your business. So that's coming up on Tuesday, 1 o'clock Central Time, 12 o'clock noon Eastern Time. Looking forward to that. Until then, have a great weekend. I hope you don't do any work. Hope you get to have a lot of fun with friends and family. And I'll see you back here Tuesday on Agency Success with Hosting.com, where we go further together.